Alright guys, today I'm going to take y'all through step by step how me and old Robert here,
Howdy folks.
how we make our wild hog sausage. And I'm going to start by introducing y'all to Robert and let him show y'all a little, give you a little tour of his facilities out here.
Alright, today we're making a sausage. We're going to start with our grinder. We got a Cabela's commercial 1 3/4 horsepower grinder. Really eats it up. And as far as grinders go, bigger is always better. So if you're going to invest in a grinder, save up enough you can buy a good one with a horse and a half or a horse and 3/4 power. And we're going to grind this pork. First we're going to rough grind it, and then we're going to cool it back down, and then we're going to run it through the fine screen, or grind it down a little finer, and that'll be when we start seasoning. And then over here we have a 50-pound mixer, which when we need to use it, we're going to take all this off and attach this to the grinder itself. And then once we have it mixed, we're going to let it cool off again, and then we're going to put our grinder in a configuration to stuff the casings. And that's about all we're going to use, but stay tuned and we're going to start getting it done.
So right now we're just taking that meat and chunking it up in chunks to go in the grinder here.
Yeah, you never want to start your grinder dry. You always want to make sure that you got some meat in it before you ever start it up.
Why do you want to do that exactly?
Well, it's hard on the parts inside the grinder, the auger and all that, if you start it dry. So always try to fill your tube up here with your meat before you start.
You like to keep all this stuff cold too, don't you? Your auger.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I need to put I'm glad you said that. I need to put the gel collar on it. So there we go. Right. Yeah, that keeps your auger and your housing for the auger and your knife and everything in there. Keeps it cool, because you never want to let your grinder get overheated, because once that auger, if it gets hot, it's going to ruin your meat. Your meat's going to have a metallic taste. So it's very important to keep your grinder parts cool. Oh, some of it's still pretty frozen, but it's going to work.
Yeah, I set this out last night in that cooler and just left the lid open. Alright, so part one is just chunking your meat up and getting it in this grinder. And as you can see, we got a lot to go. Alright, this is how we weigh our meat here. What's you got your
250 pounds.
250. Alright.
Big fat old man.
Here you go.
275.
275.
25 pounds right on the
25, exactly what we was looking for.
All right. We're going to cut our grinder off now, and what we're going to do is we're going to switch the plate. We're going to go from a rough, coarse ground plate, we're going to go to the fine plate, and we're going to add our jalapenos and cheese into it as we grind it.
Just going through a smaller, what do you call that?
A plate, just a grinding plate.
So that's coarse, the one we just pulled out.
Yeah, you can see the difference in the size of the holes. I mean, that's rough grind. That's going to be the final grind right there.
I can't believe we hit 25 pounds dead on.
We did. That's something, ain't it?
We're gonna do 50 pounds at least today, but we like to do it 25 at a time. That way it's just easier to make sure you got a good consistent mix with your spices and everything you're putting in it.
All right.
Hard to believe that's wild hog and no fat added. That ain't no piney rooter right there, folks.
All right, so now what we're going to do, we're going to run this meat back through, and as we're doing that, we're going to add jalapenos. I've already seeded and cored them, so we're going to incorporate these jalapenos into this grind along with some cheese.
These jalapenos come from right up there on that hill right there. All right, taking our coarse ground meat, putting it back in the grinder here.
Now when we get done with this part, we're probably going to put this meat back in the freezer for about 10 minutes to cool it back down. The main thing, got to keep it cool.
How often do you add the jalapenos to it?
I just kind of play it by ear, you know. I'm gonna get a little bit ground up because it doesn't really matter. You can put them all in at one time because when they go through that mixer, it's gonna mix all of them together anyway. I mean, it wouldn't hurt none. Yeah. We're not gonna put the cheese in until it goes into the mixture because the cheese is already shredded. So it doesn't need to go through the mix or through the grinder, but these jalapenos do. I'll just kind of throw one in there and throw a little meat. You can see them. You can see the jalapeno in the meat now.
Alright, so this has been in the freezer for about 10-15 minutes. Now we pulled all this, the pan and all the grinding stuff off the grinder. And we got all it back in the freezer here, staying cool. And now we're hooking the mixer up. Now we're hooking the mixer up to the grinder itself.
And to give you some good advice about making sausage, if you're going to make sausage, set aside enough time to do it at your own pace and take your time, because when you rush it, you're going to do something wrong and it's going to affect your product in the end. And there's a lot of work involved in this, and the last thing you want is to rush through it and then find out that you forgot to do something, and your product's not as good as what you wanted it to be. So, you know, we've set aside a whole day to do this, and we're taking our time and we're going to do it right. So now we're just loading this mixer up with the meat good and cold, just came out of the freezer. This is our ground pork with the jalapenos in it, and we're going to get all this in here. Then we're going to add the seasoning, and also going to add the cheese, and we're going to add some cold water, because what you want to do is you want to create what I call a slurry. You know, it's mixed up. It's like almost like a paste. And then once we're let the mixer get all that mixed, add everything we add to it, then we'll be in the final phase, which is the actual casing of the sausages. But, and here's another little trick, old saying I have about making sausage. Once you get it to the seasoned part done, cook it before you case it. And what I mean by that is, take a little bit, make a patty. I've got a portable gas range over there, and we always cook a patty of it and taste it. Because once you case it, if it's not seasoned right, you can't go back and do anything. So you always want to, you can cook it on a grill, you can cook it in a frying pan, but cook a little patty of it just to taste it, okay? All right, the seasoning we're going to use is, I get this from a company in Alabama. It's called AC Leg Incorporated, and it's fresh Cajun style sausage seasoning. One pack will do 25 pounds. And I also, in addition to using this, I also add garlic powder, paprika, and I guess that's about the additional seasonings I use. You don't need to add any salt to this because this mix has enough salt in it. So we're just gonna put that in there like that. We're gonna use the whole pack because we got 25 pounds of meat. All right, now I've got my cheese, and I've got my little teapot here full of ice water that I'm going to add as we mix it. I'm going to use this whole bag of cheese, so I'm just going to cut the top off of it.
That's just shredded
cheddar. Going to add that to it.
How much is it? How many pounds?
This is 2 pounds. So, all right. So now we're going to start mixing this and adding our water. Well, let me add my garlic powder.
See, we almost forgot a step.
Almost. And I don't measure anything, and you don't have to really. Just once we taste it, we'll know whether it's any good or not and what we need to do to it. All right, now I'm gonna add some paprika to it.
Robert's toolbox out here is slap full of spices and I mean,
yeah, it's supposed to be a rolling toolbox.
Yeah.
There ain't a tool in it except for a pair of cannon pliers.
we need to make them a video on how we can the deer meat and the bear meat.
Oh yeah. All right, we're going to start adding the water to it. Let that go. Adding the water, it distributes the seasoning better, and it brings out the flavor in it better. So, you know, but I'm going to show you how to tell when your mixture's right. It's a very simple method, but it's perfect, you know, to let you know that, hey, it's ready.
How long you let that mix?
Until we get the right consistency. I just add water to it, just let it mix. You don't want it runny, of course, but you want it, you know, what you do is when you think it's where it is, you want it to be, you'll take some, put it in the palm of your hand, and then turn your hand over. If it drops off your hand, it's not ready. If it sticks to your hand, it's ready to go, ready to be cased. I tell you, these mixers, they're a pain to clean up, but I'm gonna tell you, it's worth it. They'll save you a lot of work. just stop this, and I'm gonna get a little bit of it. It's almost there. It needs a little bit more water.
Because it fell off your hand pretty quick.
Yeah. And you don't want to make sure the water you use is as cold as you can get it. Ice water.
Ice water.
Don't use lukewarm water or just regular tap water. It's got to be cold, because if you introduce warm water into here, it's going to warm your fat up. So everything you do, you know, the water-wise and everything else got to be kept cold. Oh, and two, for this grinder, I also have a foot pedal control. And this foot pedal, it makes it a lot easier than working the switch. So I can control that grinder. When you're casing your sausages, it's really handy to have a foot controller.
We hadn't always been this high tech either with our sausage making. Years ago, we suffered too, I promise y'all.
The first time we tried to make sausage, everything you could do wrong, we did it.
And it still was edible.
It was edible.
It ain't near as good as what we do nowadays.
Alright, we'll knock this down and we'll try it again here. She's ready.
Sticking right to the palm of his hand.
That's when it's like that, it's ready. It'll eventually fall off, but when it'll stick like that, it's ready. That's perfect. Yeah. That's what you want. All right, so now we're gonna cut our grinder off to where we don't have an axe in it, and we're gonna get this meat out of the mixer. And well, first we're gonna fry a piece of it. So let me get our frying pan ready.
All right, we're about to do a little sampling here, but I don't know if y'all can see, but you see the jalapeno, cheese, everything in there.
Yeah, you gotta taste it before you tube it.
It's starting to cook up now. Won't be long, we'll get us a little sample here.
And we'll be honest, if it needs something else, we'll put it in there. It may need, you gotta tweak on it a little bit, you know. Make it to your taste. Don't make it to what somebody else you think they like, you know. If it tastes good to you, it's your sausage, that's fine, you know. Some people, the jalapenos give it enough of a little kick, but some people like to add a little ground, you know, cayenne pepper to it, give it a little bit more heat. Generally, for me, just the jalapenos is enough, even though I like spicy stuff. I don't want to make it so spicy people don't like to eat it. And I make this for my friends and my family, so I try to make it to where I know they'll eat it and not complain, because if they complain, they don't get any more of it, period. That's it. No complaints.
Yeah. All right, we got it done here.
All right, we're gonna taste it, see how it is.
Let me have a look.
All right.
See. That tastes pretty doggone good to me.
Yeah, it's right. It's ready.
I don't think it needs nothing.
I don't either.
So you got a little.
There we go. All right. Then we're going to take our ring, put it back in there. And when you do this, you're going to have a little bit of meat that's not going to get processed. It's just, you know, there's a little bit of waste involved in it, but not much. All this has been kept cold, so we got it. And when you put your grinder together for casing, you use the auger in here, but you don't use the knife, the star-shaped knife, and you don't use a plate. This is all you need.
All right, we got the grinder back put together with the casing tool on it. We got our mixed up meat right here. We just pulled out of the freezer after putting it back in there for about 10-15 minutes, and Robert's got the casings over here that have been soaking in water.
Now these casings, these are natural hog casings. You buy them in a pack and they're packed in salt. They don't have to be refrigerated, but they're packed in salt, and what you do is you get them out how many you think you're going to need, and you basically soak them in water, just rinse them in water, and then for about 10 minutes let them sit, and then come back, and you're going to have to run water through them. So what I do is I get the water running in the house, just a nice steady stream, little, small, and I open the casing up and I let water run through it. You know, it'll fill up, you fill up about that much, just run it through it to clean the inside out. Then you change your water, and when you put them in the second time to soak in water, you put a little, about 2 tablespoons of white vinegar in there with your casings, and that does 2 things. That vinegar will increase the elasticity of those casings to where you get a nice little crunch when you're eating the brat, or the, you know, and also it'll clarify them, so your end product will look a lot more palatable if you'll use the vinegar. We've slid our casings up on our tube, and I'm going to run the foot pedal, control the grinder, and James is going to do the stomping, keep it fed, and we'll start turning out some sausages. So oh, forgot a sausage. You gotta put an air hole in there with your sausage pricker to get the air out of your casing. There we go. Yeah. All right, now we're ready. That's a neat little tool, but if you don't have one, a toothpick works just fine. And I'm just easing that with my hand, just regulating how much of the case. You got to be careful not to overstuff them, because they will bust. We like to make them big, these brats we make, so.
Now, if we were doing, these are brats, if we were doing breakfast sausage, we'd have those 1-pound bags over the end of this instead of those natural hog casings.
You see what that vinegar does? You see how clear those casings are? It makes your sausage look a lot better. It's 3 or 4. Oh, we busted a casing. Oh goodness. All right, no big deal. What you do in that, what we're going to do now is we're going to just cut the casing.
If you bust one.
If you bust one, we're going to cut it. We're going to come over here. We're going to squeeze out what we can. Put it back in the hopper. All right, and then we're going to come over here and squeeze out a little until we get to where the break was. All right, now we're just going to tie it off, and that's one section. I wasn't paying attention, and I overstuffed the casing.
Tying a knot in the end here.
Yep, knotting it up. This is country boys sausage making. When we're going to twist them into links, what we need to do, we're going to start here. We're going to measure, well, not measure, I just guess. Say we want about that long. We're going to squeeze until we squeeze the sausage, you know, mixture, and then we're going to twist. You're going to twist this way first.
Away from you first.
Away from me first, or towards you. It doesn't matter. But the next one, you're going to twist the opposite way, and that goes for the rest of them. So we're going to do this one backwards. about 3 twists. Now this one, we're gonna measure it out, we're gonna squeeze it, and we're gonna go forward with it. The reason you do that, if you don't do that, they'll just unwind. So you go the opposite. So now we're gonna go forward on this one. And these casings are remarkably strong, you know, so you twist them and most of the time you don't burst them. So there's...
Hold that up, let me see it. There we go, right there, folks. That's the finished product.
All right, James is gonna start stomping and we're gonna start again here.
This is gonna be our second casing. I'm up here just pushing this meat, keeping that thing going for you. It really is a two-man job doing all this, certain points of it especially. Are most of those casings the same length, or are they vary?
No, they vary in length. Some of them might be nearly 3 foot long. Whoa, that's it. All right, some of them might be close to 3 foot long, and some of them might be 2 foot, some of them might be 18. But most of them, for the most part, are about 2 feet long. And this is the internal, it's not the actual intestine of the hog, it's actually the liner inside the intestine. But I mean, you can use those you can use collagen casings, but I'm gonna tell you, they're not as good. They're chewier, I think, and I prefer these natural hog casings. Here, if you look, bring it over here, James, you'll see right there, there's an air pocket in that sausage. So you want to come by here and just prick it with your sausage pricker or toothpick. Toothpicks work fine, and just check for any air pockets. It won't hurt your sausage, but when you go to cook it, it'll cook more evenly if there's no air pockets in it. So, a little trick for you.
All right, we got our first batch done. We're gonna swap everything over here to the grinder again and do the other batch, but here's what our first batch looks like. That's 25 pounds of bratwursts right there for you. All right, we're cutting them up now and putting 4 to a bag and sealing them down. Hope y'all enjoyed the video. This is how we make our sausage, and thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing.
Enjoy.
Count your blessings.